The task the Constituent Assembly became the sovereign body after the Indian Independence Act 1947 was enacted, and it was freed from all limitations and the restrictions imposed by the British Parliament earlier under the different acts and plans. The sole task of Constituent Assembly was framing of the Constitution for the independence India, the search of providing legal frame and incorporating important system relevant in India began. The framers looked forward the international document Progressive Democratic Constituent and Constitutional Doctrine of prevailing in Britain. It can be said the word what was finally adopted by the framers was British form. The government adopted the federal constitution as stated by the authority on the constitutional law of India, H.M. Survey. The British has an unwritten unitary constitution based on the two fundamental doctrines: doctrine of supremacy of parliament, cabinet form of the government with a monarch as its head. What is the famous view? The UK was the Westminster model of cabinet government as the system governed India. According to Supreme Court, this is the model increasingly demand high standard character and conduct from the member of legislative, judiciary, higher civil services. Two world wars and consequential trials of the war criminal before India achieved the independence marked by the international scene. The horrendous thought of extermination of millions of people in gas chamber revealed the Nuremberg of extermination of millions of people in Nuremberg trials, crimes against humanity, inhuman and barbaric violence over the civil population during the war and civil strife in the partition, which left a permanent scar, reminded the humanity of need for the human life and dignity. Cruelties and infamies during the Nazi regime influence making of the Constitution. Part 3rd was the fundamental rights was generated out of such human suffering and inspired by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Fundamental rights were not included in the earlier Constitution, the Government of India 1935, because the British Parliament was skeptical about the necessity of enshrining the fundamental rights, and rights declared by the UN were not enforceable. While the incorporation of fundamental rights is a significant aspect of the new constitution, the framers deliberated a lot of importance in the concept of federalism with the changes suitable to the Indian circumstances, the diversity in unity rather than unity in diversity. Federalism basic philosophy is accepted and provided in the Indian constitution. Thus, cooperative federalism, which is now the character of Indian constitution was described, was involved from conflicting situation and the controversial background recorded by the history. By the federalism, there is two level of government above the local level. The sovereignty is the certain specific area. The central government will have having sole authority to coin money, raise an army and declare war, while intermediate level of the government, the state provinces have sole authority to regulate education, criminal law, civil law, citizen deal and both levels of government. Federal constitution provides the expression of regional goals and national objectives. It has a special advantage, that is the federal government can absorb some of the cost new technology of program that would have to be absorbed completely by member of unit in a unitary or cone federal government system. It can accommodate the aspirations of sovereign interest of different provinces with ethnic groups, linguistic characters. Federalism is suitable to a plural society with multiple cultures and multiple languages speaking populations. Federalism allows countries involved in maximize the growth and political strength, while the some time allowing the expression of regional characters. This situation of a large size of involving separation and divergence of the community and federal will be useful of working system of government. Around the 21 nations are federal in the world, with which occupy largest part of the globe, while China is unitary. Other four nations like the Canada, the United States, Brazil, Australia are the federalism. The USSR was also a federalism till it had split into some smaller federation: Mexico, Venezuela, and Argentina in Latin America, Nigeria in Africa, Switzerland, Yugoslavia, and Czechoslovakia till now split into nations in the Europe, and India in Asia are the other federalism. Switzerland chose federalism system as the suit its three languages group: German, French, and Italian. German, French, and Italian. It recognizes three of official languages of the 22 Swiss cantons. There are 18 unilingual cantons, their bilingual canton, and one trilingual canton. The Swiss constitution guarantees each citizen's right to communicate with the central government in any of three official languages. Germany also adopted federal system instead of dividing the power between the Bund, central government, and the Länder, members unit. German constitution provides the broad area of concurrent jurisdiction. Upper houses of national legislation, the Bundesrat, has chosen the Länder government and is absolute veto power the matters of national concern. William Recker has suggested the useful framework within which has many federal government of the world many measured. He was the suggested that the federalism can measure along the centralized dimension. The following minimum and maximum illustration figure may define the dimension. Minimum: the ruler of the federation can make decision is only one narrowly restricted category of action without the obtaining the approval of the rulers of the constitutional units. Maximum: the rulers of the federalism can make decision without the consulting the ruler of the member government in all but one narrowly restricted category of action. Scale of federalism: the closer to the minimum end of scale of federal government is, the more it can be described the peripheral federalism. Closer the maximum of the scale of federal government is more the described as a centralized federalism. Federalism basic philosophy. Genesis of the idea federalism in India was the first trace in the Simon Commission, Indian Statutory Commission appointed 1927. The commission was meant to revision of the Constitution of India. The report 1930. The commission recommended the evolution of India as the Federation of Self-Governing Units. Federation of Self-Governing Units. The representative precisely states declared that during the first round of Table Conference 1930-32 that they have joined the All India Federation with a self-governing British India. White paper embodying the report of Round Table Conference in March 33 was submitted to Joint Select Committee to Parliament, which preferred the creation of All India Federation. By Government of India Act 1935, the background was ready to making India to become federation with 11 governors, provinces with 65 native states, the supposed to have the 50% of seat council of state. However, the execution of the instrument of the accession was the prerequisite to form of the federation, which could not become a reality. The Cabinet Mission Plan, the 1946, contemplated the division of country into the three zones: Zone A, Zone B, Zone C. Based on the concentrations of the Hindus and Muslims, Zone B and C included Muslim-dominated areas. The center was the supposed to uniting point these three zones. With its power confined only to defense, foreign affairs, and communication, Constituent Assembly was to be divided into three sections according to zonal scheme to evolving provincial group constitution. The proposal of grouping of the provinces became the point of dispute agreement. While the plan was acceptable major political party, the division of three zones eventually resulted in the partition as the precondition for the independence. While the representative party scheme Mountbatten instituted the major parties to agree for the partition, have the federation was a strong central instead of weak central as the contemplated cabinet mission plan. Generally speaking, the confederation in a system where the units dominated the union in a unitary state, union dominated the units, and if union and units are co-equal federalism, it is a federal confederation. There will be a alliance between the independent state where the units can ceded. In unitary state, the legislative units derived power from the central legislature. Vital features of the federalism: division of the legislative power, each of being sovereign on its own sphere. The B.R. Ambedkar used the term of union to make clear state that no right to cede from the union to set themselves into the separate state. He said that is this union federalism called the flexible federalism to say that is was not a rigid American constitution was however the expression of federalism was not used deliberately. In case one in Bharti case, the Supreme Court said that the federalism character of constitution was the basic feature. In the state of Rajasthan versus Union of India, 1970 Supreme Court 1361, it was held the state could not assert any right or base to suppose the federal character of the constitution. Supreme Court said the constitution is an amphibian in sense it can move either on the federal or the unitary plane when the action taken under Article 350 of movement of the unitary plane. Thank you.